and all that stuff. That's pretty cool. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to our quarterly CVMC breakfast. First, just a couple of housekeeping items. Big thank you to the Desmond and our servers in the room for all their hard work. Quick cell phone reminder, quiet mode, vibrate mode, airplane mode, some kind of mode that doesn't ring, just so we don't disrupt the speaker. The next meeting, Wednesday, June 8th. I want to put that on your calendars. I know we need advance notice. We'll get the invites, but just wanted to notate the date of the next meeting. So, thank you all so much for coming. I have the easy job today of doing the introduction. I'm very honored to do the introduction to a man that I call a great friend, mentor, and just a guy I love all around. A couple quick facts about our speaker, Casey Tumajian. Casey was born in Santa Monica, California, which I didn't know, West Side. He was raised in Brunswick, New York, so you pick where you'd rather be. He was a graduate of Potsdam, New York. He currently lives in Wynantskill with his lovely wife, Tara. His two kids, Logan and Stella. Casey and I share something in that our wives are both lovely, but also very strong-minded. So oftentimes they'll ask us to do something and you won't hear from us because we're checking with them and asking them if we can do something. That's us. I've only known Casey for 3 years. We met back in the spring of 2013 in a Bible study, my first Bible study. So as you can imagine, I was rather intimidated. We instantly clicked, whether it's our backgrounds, our personalities. There's just something about Casey that kind of drew me to him. For all of those years, he's been a real close friend. He's one of the most affirming and encouraging guys that I know. If you know Casey, you know the smile, you know the sense of humor. He's not afraid to share emotion, which is kind of all of that's what today is about. Love this guy. He did a reading at my wedding. He's one of those guys that you can count on for anything, you can share anything with, fully committed to his faith and not afraid to share his struggles. So, I'll keep this very brief so I can get to the floor to the main guy here. So without further ado, Casey Tumajian.
Good morning. Good morning. That was really nice. I'm fascinated by personality design, the way people are wired. I don't know why I'm fascinated by that, but I just am. So for those of you, I assume some of us in the room, being in business, know about Myers-Briggs. Maybe some of us don't, but I'm an ENTP, extroverted, intuitive, thinking, perceiving. On the DISC, which is something that, again, people might use in business, on the DISC, I'm a high I, secondary D. I got almost no S, almost no C. A few years ago, I found out that my primary love language is words of encouragement, which was awesome that Jameson just gave me those. I love you, dude. Thank you. That was awesome. My wife has learned to leverage that because, even if she says, "Don't you look handsome?" I don't know if you took kryptonite and catnip and sort of infused the two of those things together, that's what you would get every time she gives me one of those things. And she literally can get me to do anything she wants me to do, and she knows it. I don't like that that's my love language, but it is. So there's that. And I want to thank Dr. Phil Guthrie, who's in the room tonight. I just recently learned that I actually have a really low emotional intelligence. This is the last personality thing. Abominably low, actually. Dr. Spock low from Star Trek. And the funny thing is, I actually thought I had a high emotional intelligence to the point where I was going to have people in my organization take this assessment along with me so that they could get to my level of emotional intelligence. And it turns out I got the lowest scores of everybody that took the thing. They thought that was funny. So that just basically means I don't really know how to identify what's going on inside of me emotionally. I mean, right now I think I'm nervous and excited, but I could be angry. I would have no idea. So testimony. I'm about to give a testimony. It's such a weird word unless you grew up in Christian circles that gave testimonies. But it's an odd word unless you're used to that in the courtroom. But a testimony is really just a form of evidence given by a witness. A Christian testimony is where it just narrows the focus of the testimony and who can give it. So Christian is the only person that can give a Christian testimony. And it's really the story about how a person becomes a Christian, which is evidence that there's something to consider there. How a person becomes a Christian. So I'm going to talk about that today. An interesting observation about testimonies, they have a similar pattern in terms of the way I've noticed, and they always go from a progression of bad to better. And it's always in a matter of perspective, not necessarily circumstances. The progression is always bad to better, which I just think is so interesting. You'd think some of them would have a different progression. That's a similar pattern between all of them. So mine's going to be the same. The bad part in perspective usually is more on the side of hopelessness and despair, and then the better part is more hope and optimism. And that seems to be a consistent pattern between every testimony I saw. I just thought it was an interesting observation I'd share with you. So last two things before I actually get into this. I'm burning time here, watching that. Last two things. I'm going to be referencing my two dads. That used to be a sitcom. But my two dads are Dad Jim and Dad John. Dad John and Dad Jim. And the reason I use those terms is because my Dad John is my biological father. My Dad Jim is the dad who raised me. He's been my dad since I was 6. I've called him Dad. Calling him stepdad doesn't seem right. So Dad John, Dad Jim. If you had notes, I'd actually take that down so you could keep the story straight. You don't have notes. I broke this story up into chapters to organize it in my mind better. So I'm just going to read these chapters off. All these chapters begin with R because I'm addicted to alliteration. I don't know what that's about, but I've got OCD with it. So every single one of these chapters begins with R. I think that's alliteration.
Yes.
Thank you. First rejection is the first rejection is the first chapter. Remarriage with rules is the second chapter. Second rejection is the third chapter. The reveal, the fourth chapter. Fifth chapter is the third rejection. A lot of rejection in this story. Rebellion, return, relational restoration, and right now. So those are the chapters. I'm going to get into the first rejection. Buckle up. So I was born Casey Blood. Casey Blood, actually. Casey Tomasian was not my given name. Casey Blood, which is just a bad apple name right there. Dude, that is a name. Like an IRA, mafia kind of name. But that's when I was born to John and Mary Blood in Santa Monica, California. What Jameson said. I had this amazing adoration for my biological father. I just remember at a very young age, I had a high definition memory. When he spent time with me, we would go to the park. He would bring me home these glazed donuts. I still love glazed donuts to this day because of that, I think. And I just loved spending time with him, really adored him. I remember also him and my mom kind of fighting and just assuming she was wrong because he was so cool, how could he be wrong? And saying, stop, Mommy, stop yelling at my daddy. 4 years old, saying this. I also remember being in the bathtub one day. My dad's giving me and my brother Jesse a bath, and he communicated to me that we were leaving. And he wasn't coming with us. And I wasn't going to process that fully, but I understood he wasn't coming with us. That was the last time I saw him for the next 6 years, more than once a year. So basically, my whole world is your mom and dad when you're that age, and that's the last time you see this person that's been so integral in that phase of life. So probably looking back, that was probably a traumatic moment, almost like a missing person kind of trauma, no closure. So that was rejection part one. Not that he tried to reject me, but I probably felt a sense, as I look at this in hindsight, a sense of rejection. Remarriage with the rules. Brunswick to Troy. No, wait, that's the first bullet point. We moved from California to Troy. We're bouncing around. My mom gets reacquainted with a high school heartthrob, Jim Tomasian, and they end up getting remarried in 1985. Now, I want to give you a little bit of backstory of my dad. So he's got this story where he was kind of working in a job that he didn't necessarily love, tons of hours. He didn't really have a father that was relationally connected with him. So he had no model for how to really do that well. And all of a sudden he inherits these two boys with my mom, and he steps up to the plate, and he's got to cope with this wild boy kind of thing that's going on there. So he does so by trying to set us up for success, and moves us out to Brunswick in Eagle Mills, New York, and we have just this amazing place to grow up. But he also institutes a lot of rules for our success. However, it was sort of like mountain sickness. When you're taken from the base camp and just drop in the mountain, you can't really breathe. And that's kind of how we perceived that, I think. And we really couldn't keep all those rules really well, and he wanted us to keep the rules. So when we did, there was an intense emotional reaction at times. He never hit us. He probably should, and he didn't. But when my mom would get involved, watching him trying to enforce the rules, that would cause conflict. So I learned a couple things from this season of life. Keeping the rules is good for keeping you out of trouble. Try to keep the rules as best you can. If you can't keep the rules, make it look like you did. And that was something I learned as well as I could. So I would literally get up. One of the rules my dad had was we had to have toast. He was like fanatical. You eat cereal and toast. Do it. And so I would get up and want toast, I'd take the knife, I'd run it through the butter, I'd take some crumbs out, put it on the plate, put it in the thing. Deception, but I didn't get caught for that. So those are the kinds of things I would learn to do, which I think kind of played out later. So second, rejection. Because I lived in this, I was a firstborn, didn't really have an older brother, older sibling looking out for me. And I was kind of in my friend group, the sheltered one, the naive one, the one that didn't really get the dirty jokes. So let's tell Casey dirty jokes. It's funny to watch him not get those. And I would call that indirect bullying. I was happy to just have friends, but I think I was kind of in that. You ever watch the movie Goonies, where Chunk is the character? I was kind of like Chunk, but less cool. That's possible. But that was a confidence eroder. I kind of turned that to second rejection. The reveal. My mom became a Christian in 1988. That means that she believed that Jesus died, was here, lived a life, taught a bunch of things, said a bunch of things, died, came back to life, and she accepted him and chose to follow him. That happened for her in 1988. In 1990, Billy Graham comes to the Knickerbocker Arena. I don't know if you guys remember that. My mom, I'm 11 years old. My mom brings me and my buddy Phil. We go, and Billy Graham's doing that altar call thing, and my leg's shaking, like I feel like I'm supposed to go, and I don't want to go, and I go. And this woman, down on the floor of the Knickerbocker Arena, communicates to me the gospel message in a way I had never heard it before. She communicated to me more than anything else the love that Jesus has for me, to the point where it was explained like this: there's nothing I could do to have Jesus love me any less, and there's really nothing I can do to have Jesus love me any more. And that was really conveyed well. She was just awesome at that. She also told me that everyone sins, and that sin separates, and that this separation inspired God to go on this sort of rescue mission, motivated by that very love I talked about earlier. And that he figures out how to do that, God does, by having Jesus invade our planet so that he can carry out that mission. He wants to save me, just like he wants to save you. And he's a gentleman, so he's not going to force it. And that was just conveyed. I got it for the very first time, the gospel concepts, these spiritual concepts. I remember reading the Knickerbocker Arena, or walking back from the Knickerbocker Arena. We were parked under 77, and I was like full of energy, and I was jumping off the pillars that hold up 77 or 90, whatever it was. And I was like, I was presently aware that I had just had what I thought was a conversion experience. And I don't know if everybody has those, but it was a crazy experience. I don't know if I just had too much sugar or what, but I was definitely feeling it at that point. So that's a traditional pivot point for most Christian stories. Traditional pivot point. Most people's lives kind of go from bad to better, generally speaking, around that point. That's not what happened for me. Third, rejection. So this is just, I was probably the last kid, no, I was the second to last kid to go through puberty in my grade. So I was really, really high voice. I mean, my voice was already high, but it was really supernaturally high. My arms were about the diameter of spaghetti. I was really white. So I went to band camp. I mean, 3 years in a row. I was what they call a bully magnet. So this is the title of this chapter's third rejection. So I remember the 8th grade, I was like, this dude's coming down from the high school wing to talk to me, and he must like me. No, he does not like me, he wants to rough me up. He's like talking to his bully friends, you gotta go see this dude, he's so fun to bully. And I'll never forget this came to a head in 9th grade, global studies. I'm there, the girl I had a crush on since nursery school or kindergarten was to my left. Bully, we're gonna call him Sally, was right behind me. So Sally starts punching me in the back, and the girl to my left is saying, don't punch him. And I don't want her to think it bothers me, so I say, it's okay, he can punch me. And it was just talk about like a low image of self, especially if you're a guy who likes words of encouragement. That was just a really epic low for me. So that was just a kind of painting a story about my low confidence. Rebellion. So the big change finally came. Thank you, 11th grade. It was still late though. I was kind of sick, 11th grade. Anyway, well, I went from being the last kid in the grade to do a lot of things to be the first kid in the grade to do a lot of things. Not good things. These are bad decisions. Wild partying, girls, drugs, alcohol. I'm not going to get into specifics, but that was kind of. I think I was motivated to do those things because I found that it accelerated my acceptance, and that was just really important to me. Even though I had had that sort of moment with God, it wasn't really. Because of a lot of different factors, it wasn't something I was wanting to pursue at that time. The tensions